Hello, curious learners. We are going to be solving for x today in one-step addition equations. So first off, I want to answer the question of why would you want to solve for x or for any variable? What's the purpose and point of that? There are a couple of advantages. First off, this is a foundation for algebra, so all of your future algebra courses, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Pre-Algebra, all of those courses, you're going to be solving for a variable a lot. So you're going to use it in your math class. Outside of your math class, you'll also be using it in real life. Whenever you need to solve for something and you don't know what that number is, that can be a variable. So you can solve for things in real life situations. And real life situations in a math class are often called word problems, but basically in any application sense, you're going to need to be able to solve for some unknown value. And that's going to be a useful skill that you're going to develop inside this course. The next thing is that it saves time. Have you ever done the guess and check? Guess and check is the biggest waste of time because you have to plug in every guess that you have. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, and it doesn't work effectively. No more guess and check. If you can solve an equation for a variable, you don't need to do that anymore. So let's go ahead and talk about how we can do it. I'm going to show you two methods. The main reason I'm showing you two methods is because these two methods are often taught in schools. So I want to be consistent with whatever your teacher in school will be teaching you. But my personal preference, if I'm going to be honest, is this first method. So I'm going to call this method 1. This is my preferred method, and that is using inverse operations. So here are the steps. First, you find a variable. Ask yourself what happened to that variable or what's connected to that variable, and then you do the inverse operations to both sides of the equation. Let me show you an example of that. If I had the equation x plus 1 equals 5. Now, hold on, I know you're going to tell me, I know the answer is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. Because maybe in the past you've done that guess and check. And that's good that you recognize that 4 plus 1 is 5. But I'm going to show you how to use these steps on simple equations. And if you do them diligently, these steps, then you will be able to use the same steps when the equations get more complicated. So hang in there with me, and this will make a lot of sense. So first off, find my variable. The variable is the letter. It's x. Well, I found it. Good. So now I ask myself, what happened to x, or what is connected to x? Look at x, and you'll see that what's connected is plus 1. All right, or adding 1. So I'm going to do the inverse of adding 1, which is subtracting 1. See, I've put in those steps over there on the left. I found my variable, I asked what happened, and now I'm going to do the inverse to both sides of the equation. So here it comes. I'm subtracting 1 from both sides of the equation. 1 minus 1 is 0. That leaves us with x on the left side. And 5 minus 1 is equal to 4. All right? That's how we solve an equation for x. Now these steps might have seemed silly for this simple equation, but trust me, when we get to more complicated equations, you're going to be glad you practiced following each part of these steps. Now there's also an extra thing that I like to do every time I solve an equation. How would you like to know your answers right before you submit a test? Wouldn't that be great? If you could know you're going to get 100% before you submit it, well, let's see how we can do that. You can check your solution. So I have my equation over here, x plus 1 equals 5. I have all my work there. Now I'm going to actually check. So I'm going to check, is x plus 1 equal to 5 when x is equal to 4? And to do that, I substitute my value of 4 into the equation. Is 4 plus 1 5? Yes, 5 is equal to 5. So I can check my work before I submit it. This is great. I can know I'm going to get 100% on a test before I ever have to take it. Fantastic. All right, so for every single question, we're going to go through those steps and we're going to check our work when we're done. Let's get into it. I want you to try this one here. Here are your steps and here is your equation. Go ahead and pause the recording. Inside of Curious, you'll get a chance to go ahead and solve this using the testing tools. All right, we are back for the full solution. I found my variable x. What happened to x? I added 4. So I'm going to do the inverse, which is subtracting 4 from both sides of the equation. 4 minus 4 is 0, leaving me x on the left. 9 minus 4 is 5. 5 is the correct solution. But just to be certain, I'm going to check my work by substituting the value of 5 into the equation there. Is 5 plus 4 equal 9? Yes, it does. 5 plus 4 does equal 9. I have the correct solution. I've been able to check it. Yay. All right. Now, up to this point, we've given you pretty simple equations. I want to give one that's a little bit of a challenge. Hopefully, this will help you to realize how important it is to follow these 3 steps. Here's your equation. X plus 12 is equal to 7. Go ahead and take some time to solve that question. All right, here is your full solution. I found my variable x. What happened to x? I added 12. What am I going to do to both sides of that equation? I'm going to subtract 12. So I have 12 minus 12 is 0 on the left side, and where the tricky part comes in here is that 7 minus 12 equals negative 5. We threw in a negative. Again, this pattern will work every time. Negatives don't matter. Every single time you follow this pattern, it will work for you. Let's check just to make sure that it works. Is negative 5 plus 12 equal to positive 7? Negative 5 plus 12, well, the signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. 12 minus 5 is 7. Looks good to me. So that is how I would solve and check for this question that's a little bit more complicated. Now, moving into our second method, I told you I'd teach you 2 methods of solving these equations. I want to show you a second method. This is not my favorite method, but it's one that teachers use a lot. I've had a lot of students come to my school saying, yeah, I was taught how to do it this way. And it's absolutely fine. I'm going to show you how to do that with this question here. X plus 8 is equal to 13. Again, could you probably just tell me the answer? Yes, but we're going to go through this method, so when things get more complicated, you can use it. Here we go. The method, I'm calling it changing the sign. So here's what it is. You're going to find the variable. You're going to say what happened or what is connected to it. So my variable's x. What happened to it? It added 8. Now, what I'm going to do is move that and change the sign. So instead of being plus 8, I'm going to change the sign to negative 8. Now, when you're usually taught this in school, you usually don't go through these steps in this order. Usually what you'll do is just look over at the equation right here, and the teacher will say, take what's connected to 8 and just go ahead and move it over here and make it negative. And the reason I don't like that is because you don't know why you're doing it. It's just a memorized trick that people learn, and I don't like memorized tricks where you don't know what you're doing. So this is actually what you're doing over here. You're finding the variable, finding what's connected to it, and then moving what's connected to it over here and changing it to being a negative. And when you do that, you also have to get rid of this one. In case you haven't noticed, the way I teach this, it looks an awful lot like method 1, and you're doing the same things as method 1, but this way you kind of understand a little bit more what you're doing. So again, if you were taught this method, it's not a bad method, but just make sure you understand why it is that you're moving this positive 8 over here to become a negative 8. Otherwise, it's just a memorized step that might not make any sense to you. All right, so that's my tip on this one. So you get your final answer of x being equal to 5. 13 minus 8 is 5. There you go. So we're going to check our work as we always do. I'll take my original equation, plug the number 5 into there. Is 5 plus 8 equal to 13? Yeah, it is. So we have the correct answer. Nice. All right, time for you to practice. I'm going to give you an equation. X plus 3 equals 10. There are the steps. Again, you can continue to solve using this method, or you can use the previous method. It's kind of up to you. But go ahead and solve that one. All right, so we found our variable x. What happened to x? We added 3 to it. And this time we're going to move the 3 over and make it into a negative 3 instead of the previous method. So 10 minus 3 is equal to 7. To check my work, I'm going to plug 7 into my equation. Is 7 plus 3 equal to 10? Yes, it is. All right, great job. So now it's time to get a challenge question. I'm going to go ahead and give you a challenge question using the same method. Here it is. A couple of negatives in there makes it a little bit more challenging. So go ahead and pause the recording and solve this one on your own. All right, what's our variable? X. What happened to x? I'm adding negative 4. I'm going to move it over and change the sign. So instead of adding negative 4, I'm subtracting negative 4. Following exactly the same steps. So I'm going to shift it over there and it becomes minus negative 4 instead of plus negative 4. Now, in my classes, what we always do whenever we see that minus negative, we change it into a positive every single time. So instead of having negative 18 minus negative 4, we'll change that to being negative 18 plus 4 every time. And negative 18 plus 4 gives us negative 14. The signs are different, so you need to find the difference between the two. All right, let's check our work. We've got all of our work over there on the left. Let's look at our original equation. X minus plus negative 4 is equal to negative 18. We're going to substitute our value of negative 14 into there. Is negative 14 plus negative 4 equal to negative 18? Yeah, it is. Good. So we have successfully solved using this method, this change the sign method. So basically at this point, I can't teach you both methods for every single lesson, so we're going to have to pick a method. Method 1 would be using inverse operations. Method 2 would be changing the sign. Notice the way that I teach them, they look very similar to each other. In our future lessons, we are going to use the first method because I like it better and I find that it helps students know what they're doing and why they're doing it. Just a little bit more than just memorizing, move it over, and change the sign. All right. I also find that when we get into more complicated equations, using inverse operations will help us know the steps and understand it, and you transition into complicated equations much easier doing it that way. So moving forward, we are going to use method 1. If you prefer method 2, notice they're very similar. You can go ahead and continue to use that as we go through the course. I hope that lesson was helpful for you, curious learners. Have a wonderful day.